All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We are live. Kiss Organics Q&A. Organic Q&A. I don't know. How you doing today, Dad?
I'm good. I'm good. I know you were rushing to make it on time, and I feel a little rushed today too. I'm excited to be here, so should
Well,
be fun.
good. Yeah, it should be fun. I literally just walked in the door from the new farmhouse in Astoria, which is awesome. But I like seriously just like bypassed the dog. I kissed the wife, came to the room, and here I am. So not much prep going on. That's why we count on chat for all the good questions. What's been keeping you occupied today, though?
I guess the big thing in my life, I want to hear more about this move and that and everything. And I'm sure other people would like to hear what you've been up to too. But we just got a puppy. I've never been a small dog person. Now we have a small dog. Um,
Yeah.
but it's fun because you can take it everywhere and it's not intimidating to my 6-year-old daughter. I was a big dog person, but little dog, little poops. There's some perks. So yeah, just training a puppy right now is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I've been fortunate enough to either like adopt or rescue a dog when it was a little bit older. So I've never had to go through like the puppy stage, which is good because I'm kind of a pushover. So they'd probably get away with murder.
I am a firm believer you got to train your dog. I have some friends with some dogs that are just totally unruly. It drives me nuts because they jump up on you. They don't listen. So anyway, um, tell me about the property. Let's talk about that real quick before we dive into questions. How are you liking it? Are you going to be able to garden there? What's the plans? Oh, it looks like you're frozen. Either you're frozen or I'm frozen,
Well,
but I'm not. Oh, there you
okay.
are.
I think I
You're
was frozen. I'm back. Who knows? Who knows? But sorry I missed that part.
how's the property? Are you going to be able to garden there? What's it look like? Are you excited?
Oh, dude, I am super excited. Actually, this is something that we've been talking about and wanting for many, many, many years. Like Astoria is one of the, favorite places for us to go. We wanted to live somewhere there, but we also wanted to have like property where we could do something like farming. But it was almost like give or take, do you want to live in the city or do you want to live out of it? And we lucked out. We found something that is right in the middle. It's zoned for farming, so it's a RF2, so 2 acres is the minimum lot, which means I've got a 2 acre lot. It's got the house on it. It's got a big open field of just grass, which, yeah, I'll be able to do a lot of farming out there. There's elk, so I'm going to have to construct some pretty beefy security. The goal is to go greenhouse, maybe even mixed building, kind of. And this is something that we could talk about today that I wanted to talk about. And it's cool. I see people putting questions in here. I'll star that. And then thank you, Fuzzy Bunny, for actually putting question in. That's what caught my eye. We'll star these and get to these. But the one thing that we could possibly talk about today, too, is I think it's the NRCS. I'll have to find it. But they
Mhm.
just released about $500,000, 700 or $700 million worth of sustainable or renewable farming grants. And the first step is to get the land registered with the USDA. So it's already zoned as farmland. I can do some good things with that. But that's my first goal is I want to get it registered with the USDA to then apply for some grants that can maybe build the building of my dreams to do some indoor farming. That's a
Awesome.
lot.
That's really exciting. That is a lot,
Yeah.
but that's exciting, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
Are you nervous at all or excited about the change going from Washington, Oregon, and far as like cannabis regulations or flower availability, dispensaries, that kind of
Um,
thing?
Well, I've always said that Oregon does it better than Washington. Better growers, better flower, better laws, better home grow laws. So I'm excited in that aspect. Unfortunately, Oregon also put a moratorium on licenses. They did that a few years ago. So I can't just buy a license to grow cannabis and then start. I have to purchase one on the secondary market. And it depends on what people are asking for that originally $1,000 license. It's
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can also grow, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, 5 plants just as a home grow state
four.
regulation,
Yep.
right?
Four.
Four,
You could
four.
do four as a home grower. Medicinal, you could do up to 8. So it's actually a little bit less than here in Washington when it comes to the
Yeah.
medicinal grow rights. But as far as just everyday, every person rights, Washington, you still can't grow a single plant. So yeah, call that legalization 13 years after the fact.
Well, you can grow with a medical card. Like I just went through the
Medical.
process where I
Yeah.
got a medical card, so I can grow 15 here legally, which
Yeah.
I do 12. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not optimal. I have to pay him $150 a year for a chiropractor or naturopath to
Totally.
talk about how I have chronic pain for 5 minutes and then write me a prescription.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I've been a med patient here since 2011. So, yeah, but that's how I've always kept doing what I've been doing. But in Oregon, you automatically get it, and same deal. If you go and you pay your money, have a hangnail, pay your money, get your med card, which is stupid because that's why we got rid of the med system in Washington, is because anybody with a hangnail could go and get a card, and then they sign it over to somebody, and then pretty soon somebody has a warehouse full of legally grown medicinal cannabis, unregulated, untaxed, untested. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
I know. That's why the system bailed. But did you actually see, this is something that I did want to bring up with like you and Brandon, the USDA, the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Services, they just launched a huge, huge grant effort, and it all ties into like regenerative or sustainable agriculture.
I haven't seen it. No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
It's December
interesting.
10th. I'm pulling up. Actually, I'll pull it up here on the other screen right now. It's a pilot program. December 10th is when it came out, and I will give a shout out to Brandon Rust from Full Crop Sciences. He did a little podcast about it, which is where I learned about it. He also says that he has an active grant writer that he works with. Anybody who wants more information, send them an email. I sent them an email. That person got back to me, said, okay, here are the steps, the things that you need to do to qualify for this regenerative pilot program. And yeah, first thing for me was registering with the USDA. Once my farmland is actually registered farmland with the USDA, I can begin the process. And yeah, here it is, 400 million through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, 300 million through the Conservation Stewardship Program. It's a pilot program. For blah, 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 blah. You can read it, but I'm excited because again, this is what we do. I also did go to school and have academics that I could say, hey, look, guys, I really do regenerative and sustainable farming. I've paid your college money. But primary practices, I mean, crop rotation, contour farming, orchards, perennial crops, cover crops, drainage water, harvest or forage harvest management, mulching, pest management, conservation. Again, all things that we do. So this is pretty excited, man. And this is open for anybody. It's not just you. It's not just me. Anybody with some farmland can kind of get down. So I want to get a whole bunch of money and have them build the farm of my dreams for me.
Well, good luck. I would happily support that as a use of taxpayer dollars. So
Yeah, well, it would be vegetables I would be growing out
yeah.
there. So it's, they're not going to federally fund a cannabis farm.
Not knowingly, yeah.
Yeah, not knowingly, right? But, yeah, I'm excited for that again because 'cause I'm getting into the tissue culture side of things too, which means pretty much if there's a plant or a vegetable or a fruit and it's special and I can touch it and I can get plant tissue, I can very likely maybe tissue culture that. And it'd be great to have a, off-peak season greenhouse full of just the juiciest, most delectable veggies that people could find, so that's a goal, man.
Yeah.
Check in with me in like 3, 4 years. We'll see how it's going.
My wife just actually harvested a bunch of carrots today that we'd forgotten to harvest that look phenomenal. Some of them were massive. I almost brought them in here to show you because some of them were so funny looking. But yeah, no, there's nothing better than fresh produce for sure. Though, as a home gardener, the biggest thing I've learned, the biggest pointer I have for home growers is grow the food you're going to eat. So just because you can grow something doesn't mean you should. And then grow the stuff that's like more expensive at the grocery store or more likely to have pesticides. Like I always try and grow onions. I grow potatoes because those are, I try to grow all the root crops I can. And then I grow tomatoes, peppers, the kinds of things that I know are pay more for in the grocery store.
Mhm. The dirty dozen, like you say, loaded with
Yeah.
pesticides. There is that dirty dozen, so definitely Google that, fruits and veggies, guys. You will see, what typically is coming into your house with the most residue on it. Yeah, I've always wanted to do just, again, off-peak season. There's more of a demand for off-peak. If you're in a greenhouse, you're really controlling the environment, so fun little things like that. Ginseng, man, ginseng, if you could grow that, bro, that's way better than growing cannabis, I'll tell you that, even in the heyday.
I actually grew a wasabi plant for a while on the
Yeah.
back porch in Kirkland, Washington. I never got to harvest it because I ended up accidentally killing it after a year and a half, but it was kind of fun, a little experiment. Um, and I just grew it in the regular biochar soil, so it wasn't anything special other than I had to keep it in a shaded area and I kept it pretty wet. But it was a fun little plant to grow.
Yeah, that's again, like I'm into peppers, so I want to experiment and grow a bunch of different peppers. The hotter the better. And some things
Yeah.
relate, not everything, but at the end of the day, it is gardening and soil health is important, regardless of your crop. So we need to focus on that and not too hard when we're using the Kiss Organic stuff. By the way, I used the new, Bloom Booster pack the other day, replaced the old pack. Thank you for having Andrew send that out.
Nice.
My
Yeah.
plants got so happy right away. Like, not right
Awesome.
away, but as far as organic dry amendments, yeah, really quickly, dude, they look nice, they look green, they look healthy, and if you saw them before, you'd probably put me on the cover of your website because they got just so harshly overwatered from the auto pots that they were
Oh,
just yellow and every leaf was like this. Now you would never know. So very happy about
really?
that.
I thought one of the reason people went to auto pots was because it made watering easier. I've never used them.
Yep. So if you're using like a heavier soil, which a lot of organic soil is, you have to still turn your system on and off, or you have to just let it run dry and then have a few days. Because if you keep it consistently, or if you keep water in the reservoir constantly, um, it will look good for a while, and then once it develops that big root mass because it had access to all that water, that root mass just keeps the capillary action, just keeps bringing water in to the root zone, and it gets it drenched to
Hmm.
the point to where if you take your soil out of the pot, you can literally squeeze and it is not even dripping. It's a steady line of water. So if you
Oh,
don't
wow.
allow
Okay.
for a dry back with those auto pots in with heavier organic type soil, all the KISS stuff that I've used, um, it will. It'll ruin it'll ruin your plants just by drowning them. So yeah.
No, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people use that. That's something that I always try to put in my videos. Again, it kind of cocoa is more of a medium that works better, or a lighter mix works better in the auto pots, but I like the results that I get from the soil. So I would rather, if I had to choose between the soil or the auto pots, I'm going to choose the soil. So I found a way to make that soil work with the auto pots. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, good advantage. Well, let's see here, though. We did have a question already coming in here, and this is from Fuzzy Bunny. Again, I appreciate you putting question in front of that. That helps us kind of see that. The question says, is there a point when one should add more compost to reuse soil? I'm currently in my 5th round of Kiss Biochar soil, and it's crushing.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great question because when we first started out, we were adding compost every cycle. And what we discovered was two things. So first off, your soil starts at, this level at the start of the run, and then by the end, it's gone down. Part of that is the organic matter breaking down into smaller pieces, essentially. And that compost is going to break down faster than peat moss and all these other amendments. But the bigger issue is just the bulk density. Things are just getting compressed in there. It's one of the reasons we, till or mix up the mix over time, is because of to reduce that bulk density or that compression. The advantage of adding compost is you're adding more organic matter. However, if you're using KISS soil already or any of these living soils, you're going to have organic matter in there. We're talking 30, 40% plus in a lot of cases, to where it's not the limiting factor of growth. We're in an outdoor garden in actual soil. Like if we went out to your backyard in Astoria there and dug up, organic matter is probably going to be, if we're lucky, 3% is great. 5% is phenomenal. So it's a totally different scenario. I don't think you need to add compost. 5th round is great. I think you could keep going. If your soil starts to drop down below a certain level, you just need to get more material into the bed, then I'd probably just add more actual soil, because then you're getting something that's more balanced. It's going to have all the physical properties we want. Compost is your most contaminating input by far. And so we want to limit the amount that we're adding over time. And we're still going to get the benefits of organic matter. We're going to get the benefits of good biology and all those things. We don't need to use as much as we used to think we did. So.
Okay. Good to know. I'm just walking the fields out. There's elk, there's deer. I think there's probably bear. There's a lot of animals around because there's a lot of unidentified big poops out in the field. So
yeah,
the soil should be really good out there, honestly. But I will be doing a soil test because I want to find out, again, if there's pollutants in the soil. I want to find out what an overall ratio is, but I will be doing the soil test. And does a soil test normally come back and give you like a level of organic matter?
It does, yes. And you do want to let, if you're working with someone like, Brandon Hudson with KISS, or, an agronomist, you want to let them know that this is actual soil, not potting soil. We can usually tell looking at the test results, but that's just a good piece of information because we do approach it differently. One thing to keep in mind, if you get a soil test, that's not going to tell you pollutants. It's not going to tell you heavy metals. Those are separate tests that you have to spend more money on. All a soil test is really going to tell you is what's going on chemically in the soil. What minerals do you have in the soil, and in what sort of ratios do they exist? What your pH is, all that stuff. Super useful information, but it's not going to tell you, arsenic, lead, BPA, glyphosate, any of those sorts of things people might be concerned about. Microplastics. Yeah.
Wow. So would a person, or like even a commercial facility, if they're testing, the new soil that they're bringing to the building, or me myself, is it like terpenes? Is it a la carte? Do I have to pay? Okay, I want the glyphosate testing. I want the lead testing. Or is it just a general like panel of heavy metals or toxins?
It depends on who you go with for that testing. I can only speak to what we do. So we work with Logan Labs for the soil test, and that's going to give us all the main minerals, that your plant may need, and micronutrients. And then you're going to also test for heavy metals through Cannabis Chem Lab. The soil test is going to cost you $60. The Cannabis Chem Lab test is going to be $99. So if you want analysis from KISS, you're about all in $200 for that through us if you wanted those two things. Not terrible. It's still a lot of money, but it's good information to have for a new property. The most important thing for you too, I think, is to test your water, and that's going to be under $50, but that's going to be such a crucial thing to know about your growing.
It's a very, very good point. I haven't even thought about that yet. Here where I live, and actually my previous house, I'm lucky. My pH is always in the right zone we want for soil, and the ppm is usually 30 or 40. So I've always lucked out.
Awesome.
Wow, I am going to have to test it. But aside from like that ppm or the EC and the pH of the water, what would they be looking at in a water test?
Well, when you talk about EC, basically that's the electrical conductivity of the soil, and that's made up of cations. Usually cations. It could be anions too, but typically cations, things like calcium, sodium. There can be chlorides, which is an anion too, but whatever makes up these minerals in your soil or in your water, will contribute to the buildup in your soil over time. So if there is a lot of mineralization in your water, that can be a bad thing because it can move out of proper pH range, or it can be bringing in a lot of, in this case, the two worst ones are sodium and chloride, assuming your water is free of heavy metal. So that's typically one to look at. And so, like, if you're looking at buying a property, getting a water test is typically something they'll give you from a garden, from a drinking perspective, but it doesn't tell you enough information about what your plants may want or need for water, because humans are not plants, plants are not humans. We consume very different amounts of water. And so it's always a good idea to look at that. And then Oregon uses chloramine, Washington uses chlorine if you're on public water in most systems, at least in the areas that I'm familiar with. So that's another thing that some people are concerned about. We could talk about that too.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting little detail just to even jot down and, know off the top of my head that Washington and Oregon handles it differently. And that's, it sounds like the test is kind of, we mentioned ppm. It gives you a general idea, or even the EC, electrical conductivity. It gives you an idea of what the total is, but not the individual. And that's where the test would say, okay, your water is 80 ppm, but 60 of that is calcium, phosphate, or whatever, right?
Sure. Yeah. And if you're, if you do water, if you have a EC ppm meter and you come back with 30 ppm on your EC meter, you probably don't need to test your water. It's going to be fine no matter what that makeup is. So it really just depends. The big thing is alkalinity with water, which is the ability to move the pH of the water essentially. And that's something that you'll get from a quality water test. Unfortunately, you can't just go to Home Depot and buy those cheap testers to do at home for soil testing or water testing. They're just not very accurate. It's a waste of money, unfortunately, I think, in all cases.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention in chat Amazon soil testing, and it made me curious too. And again, I wonder what the level of clarity or the margin of error is on something like that. I don't know. Have people come to you with a Amazon soil test?
I haven't seen a direct comparison, but I've talked to enough people over the years to know that the accuracy of the test versus having a machine that, lab equipment that can really do an accurate analysis is phenomenally different. Now if you really just want a rough idea, like I'm seeing the comment now. I certainly wasn't trying to call out John here with his comment in the section here. Yeah, I probably would give you a very rough idea of where you are. I think having a combo meter is a more useful tool long term, because you can run S and pH testing that would be pretty accurate, and it'll give you a ppm or EC that will tell you roughly what kind of fertility you have, but not what makes up that fertility.
Okay. And yeah, I do want to shout out to John Lindsay. He's always the first one in chats, always in the comments, a huge supporter of multiple channels. Wherever I go, I see him there. So shout out to John. And again, thank you for participating in the chat today and bringing that up. Because, you know, it's almost like Google. If you could think it, it's already there. So if someone's asking the question, other people want the answer too. So I'm glad you've heard of that tag, because that was new to me when I saw John post that.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, another.
I did have something I want to share with everyone, because I know, like, I see some names in here, people who catch the weekly chats the weekly lives that I do with Brandon and the KISS team. I know you have a different audience that tunes in for your stuff too. So I wanted to share my home grow. I saw someone comment asking about home, let's see your gardens. I haven't shared my yield numbers with you because they were really surprising me. So let me see if I can pull this up without.
Yes, because you were playing with underlighting on this last round, correct?
I was, and now before I show the video, because I don't actually know what. I haven't watched this video in a while. I have a bunch of videos in my grow, so I don't know exactly what's going to pop up. Other than it's currently showing weed in my grow. It was one of the last videos before I harvested. So I want to give some context to folks before I show the picture or the video though. The first one was I ran a side-by-side. I have 2 4x4 beds. One of them I did just top lighting. The other one I did top lighting and under canopy lighting. Both of the lights were from BIOS. One had more bars than the other, but they had equal amount of wattage, same spectrum. Everything else about them was the same. And so I tried to do 1,000 watts on the top lighting side, and then 800 watts on the under canopy side, plus the under canopy light. So a switch of light. And then on the top lighting side, I pruned as I normally would. Everything below, 12 to 18 inches of the canopy was just stripped. Whereas on the under canopy and top light side, I didn't really do any pruning other than to remove fan leaves to allow for a little more light and air through the canopy itself. So it has more bud sites. Now, it looked to me like the under canopy side yielded better, but it wasn't until Brandon gave me the numbers because I took everything and had Brandon help me with the harvest, the curing and drying part. Yeah,
sounds like he's right here. Okay, it's right now too.
yeah. So anyway, it was a Rick James cut from Gold Leaf Gardens. I can't remember the cross, but I'm sure Brandon can throw it into chat. But it's so smaller nugs, smaller buds, and kind of more equal across the whole canopy. So you didn't end up with these huge colas up top either, because I think that's going to be an important factor when I share the yield and show the photo. 2 other factors that people should be aware of. One, the under canopy side was consistently underwatered because I was having a malfunction with my blue mats. So I ended up having to hand water it a lot more, but there were times when my M bar in there would be over 200, which is, if you understand that, that's very, very dry. Yeah. And then when I would water, sometimes that water was very cold, which is also not something you want to do. So that was a big factor. And then the last factor was I had really bad thrips. So this is like day 55, and I was like, I'm going to harvest an early harvester. But it probably could have gone maybe a little bit longer too. So, okay. All of that context, here's the reveal.
All right. You want me to put the video up?
This is the room. Yeah. Is it showing?
Yep. Let's see if I can get it.
Oh, and I have my grow link here, or grow sensor, which is awesome. I know you did a review on it. I'm going to post a review soon. Really cool company, really cool products.
I totally, that grow sensor, the Grow Sensor Pro, is freaking awesome. And they did a giveaway as well. And a couple of the regular watchers from this channel won themselves a Grow Sensor Pro. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I'll let you narrate
here. It's a cool device. No, that's good feedback. And I just want to say, like, I was super skeptical of the Grow Sensor I'm like, it's pretty expensive. There's other products that do what it does. But after having used it, and in fact, it's not a subscription based product, I just think that's phenomenal. So you can see here, I'm just show you down here. There's no, I took everything off down below here. And this side I held at probably about 70 MBAR the whole time. So this side got watered a lot better.
Yeah.
And you can see stuff starting to fall over on this side. Anyway, a lot more density over here. Yeah, the drier side. I left every one of these little buds down here. And then when I went to harvest, I took it all to Brandon's. So the numbers on this, I guess I can just leave it playing here. Let me find them. I had them in my chat. It was 1,417 grams on the under canopy side and 506 on the top lighting side.
Whoa, that's
so
almost
triple. Yeah.
Holy
Which blew me away, because all the research I've seen on under canopy lighting says 1% more light equals 1% more yield, more or less. And under canopy lighting allows you to get more light onto the plants than you can just by strict top lighting because of photo bleaching. And so you can essentially increase your yield approximately 20% by adding it, but you're also adding 20% more electricity in theory as well. But in this case, I was really impressed. So I'm going to run it back. I'm going to get the thrips thing under control. I'm still waiting for Stan to identify the species because she thinks they're actually echinothrips. She said they're not onion thrips. So
different.
To make sure I understand. I understand that I need to know the life cycle, because I was going to apply a bunch of Principal, which is a Bavaria product. And she's like, that's not going to do anything. They don't pupate in the soil. You're wasting your money on that. So it's important to get an identification of your thrips or your whatever insect you're dealing with. I thought that was really useful piece of information.
Are you using trap cards for that, or how did you sample the thrips? Because they're teeny tiny.
They are small. These ones were big enough that you could see them with your naked eye. And I say this as a guy whose near vision is starting to go. But yeah, you can see them if you're paying attention. These guys spent a lot more time on the top of the leaf than I'm used to seeing. But what I had to do, and this was really, really hard, was I had to capture them off of a leaf by straining them through like a coffee filter with isopropyl, and then pick them up, putting them into a little vial, because you have to get them off the leaf matter, and you want to kill them. And then I had to ship them, and they're so tiny, get down to it. So I was using my Dino Light and like tweezers or a paintbrush actually to pick them up with the paintbrush and get them into a vial. Actually, it just randomly happened that my wife had some sample perfume vials, those little tiny ones you get like
old seed. Yeah, we used to put seeds in those.
Yeah, so she just happened to have a few of those, so I filled those up with alcohol and put them into that. Yeah, she hasn't had a chance to look at them yet, but
live capture.
I'll report back.
Kudos. It's always a little bit of a challenge.
You live capture and then you kill them. But man, I want to make sure before my next run that I have them under control. And these plants also got way bigger. I think if I ran smaller plants and was able to flip sooner, then you wouldn't see quite the discrepancy in yield.
I mean, there's so many questions. It makes me, wonder if the top light only was left unlollipopped, if that would have just made up for a lot more of that weight. And Joshua Miller had a question. It says, was the larf still larf? And I'm assuming that would be for the bottom light side, because that's the big selling point. It's like, turn your larf into A-buds.
So that is the big selling point. You're absolutely right. So the whole idea behind canopy lighting is you're getting more yield, and your bottom buds, because they're getting more light, will have better quality essentially. So they're not going to be larfy. Brandon says there's no larf. I think some of that is these genetics, because it does produce that smaller bud. I think it was a pretty dense bud. I think it contributed to the yields being higher. I think some genetics may not respond quite as well or dramatically as this one does. But that's the big thing about under canopy lights. And they're not all that expensive when you think about it. I think the BIOS ones, which are the ones I'm running, they're probably going to run you around $300 delivered for a 4x4 bed, which is not that expensive relative to a lot of the stuff that we spend money on for our grows.
Here's some cool follow-up questions to this as well. It's kind of echoing what I was said a second ago, Steve. Is more
Yeah.
quantity of bud sites potentially that would equal or even those numbers out a little bit. And talking about the quality of the lowers from the under canopy side, and Black Wool Cap here kind of says this too. It says, how are the bottom buds on the underlights? Are they ripening? Because this is what caught my eye with the question. It's like, are they ripening at the same speed as the top? Because a lot of times when we have big plants and a dense canopy, that under canopy, you can almost half cut the plant, give that under stuff another extra week. So was it ripening
Yeah.
equal to the top?
I'm trying to find a good video here that I can share that might show that a little bit better. I would say it ripened pretty well. I think the top stuff still looked a little bit better to me, but it wasn't as dramatic as you would have expected it to be. Also, the leaves on the bottom part were they were curled under. They didn't look great. The leaves that were just like right touching or right next to that light. I think it's still pretty bright for it. Let me see if this video has a little bit better
Okay.
image here. Sorry, I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just going through the
Here we
questions
go.
here. Okay, let me pull this up. Oop.
So here you can kind of see. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys.
I wish I could make it bigger, but that's all it gives us.
Yeah, I'm trying to zoom in here. So there you can kind of see the buds. They didn't stack like they do on the top part, but like this here was a pretty relatively dense bud. I'd say a little lower quality than the top buds, but not terrible.
One of the things I always see when it comes to like ripening, there's the blue the moisture meter, is a lot of time it's the color. Like my tops will get that nice kind of the purple foliage. They look good, but the bottom underneath is, still a little bit immature and green. But,
Yeah.
sure as anything, if I cut that top off and I give that green layer an extra week, it's just the same color as the top. So it's almost like that light hitting it is what initiates that and trigger it. So yeah, I was curious if they ripened evenly. That was a good question, guys. Thank you, Black.
Yeah, I think Brandon says it in the chat. The entire crop is gumball size. It really is. Like you don't get that big difference. If anything, the buds in the middle of that spectrum got the least amount of light, but this is a pretty homogeneous crop. I want to run different genetics and see what it does. I would expect that what everyone is saying is totally right. Like I would expect the bottom buds to not look as good as the top buds. I would expect the yields to be higher because there's more bud sites. Like all of that stuff makes perfect sense. I think these genetics just really are designed for this kind of an under canopy lighting system and for leaving more bud sites just because they produce really small gumball sized buds. So,
a great point. A lot of things will come down to genetics, strain dependent. So I like that. I guess one more question here on that from Scooby Dabberdoo. Did the plant with the under canopy mature faster? I know you kind of took them early at 55 days, but was there any difference in maybe like the trichome maturation or any other noticeable signs there?
I didn't honestly do a really good comparison looking at a top bud versus a bottom bud for trichomes. That's a really good point. I should do that with this next run. There was nothing that I noticed just visually without a hand lens. But I should have checked that. I should have done that.
Cool.
Here, good point.
There's
This is
that's
I'm going to put it into the chat what the cross was here. I just looked it up. So
okay. And that's why we do do this multiple times, and it's great that we do have the community feedback, because you don't always think of everything, and something that just seems like, yeah, you would check that to one person, may not have come across that. So raspberry ice cream cake crossed with the dosey doughs equals Rick James. I'm Rick James.
It was a pretty special cut, though. I was not allowed to save it. It was kind of given to me on loan for one run. So I'm grateful and thankful to Leaf for them. So
Nice. That's good of you to honor that. That's how you get given things again, guys, is to follow the requests. It's not that hard. It's a blessing to get something in the first place. So play your cards right, and who knows, something may come to you again. Let's see. Here was one more comment about the thrips, because you wanted them live. Cam Complex says, I use a sucker bottle. That could be a great option for a few different insects out there.
is that like a drawer? Is that what you're referring to?
I would imagine. I mean, because I've actually seen that used before. It's almost like a little anteater nose, and it's got the bulb at the back, and squish it, and just that suction of the air.
Oh,
Because if
yeah.
you're able to, I see it on the leaf itself, you could get over it and just suck it right into the little bobule. And I imagine you could even pour alcohol in
Suzanne
there.
had me take a coffee filter and put the leaf in it, dump alcohol over the top of it, and then after the alcohol goes through, it will kind of push the thrips, and then kind of push them off of the leaf, and then you can kind of go back and pick them out off of the coffee filter
Under the
but that's an idea, the squeeze bottle thing. Yeah.
Let's see here. There's a question about the Trait Grows, which I was using here. Says, when using the Trait Grow with two different phenos, when one is clawing and one is not, could it be because one is heavier and holding more water than the other? Yeah, plants can drink differently, even in that same tray. I know, like, the Westport grape juice doesn't drink as heavy as the Kool-Aid Man. So if I did have them in the same tray, the Westport grape juice is going to look probably pretty miserable, while that Kool-Aid Man is going to look better. Pick them up. Yeah. See, between watering, because again, the one that's drinking faster or better, it'll probably be lighter in between your waterings, whereas the one that may be clawing, may be a little bit heavier. Tad, just like in general, clawing, is there something that maybe pops into your head as a potential cause? Anything nutrition-wise, or do you think it's water?
The thing you hear the most is nitrogen, excessive amounts of nitrogen. Typically, though, when you hear about that, it'll also be you'll see a very dark green plants. Your internode spacing can be wider, and then you'll typically have lower yield, significantly lower yields, and maybe more pest pressure if it is nitrogen. The other thing that you can think of is your watering. So if you are over or under watering dramatically, you're going to lose root hairs. So the way the plant uptakes nutrients and the primary way it uptakes water is through these root hairs. Root hairs are those little tiny fuzzy things that you see people think is mycorrhiza, but it's not when you look at a healthy root. Those white little tiny fuzz things, and you kill those. That root is where all the magic happens on the plant. They're constantly sloughing off and dying and things like that, regenerating. But if you overwater or you underwater and you kill those at a greater rate than is happening naturally in the soil, you're going to see nutrient issues up above. So people will say, I've got, in this case, drooping leaves or chlorosis or something going on nutrient wise. A lot of times that can just be related to moisture in the soil and what you're watering because of that root hair death, because overwatering and underwatering can both display very similar above ground symptoms. The phyllosphere, the area above the roots where the leaves are, can look very similar. So There's a few things it could be.
Yeah, and watering, for as simple as it sounds, is where a lot of people have problems, particularly newer growers. Um, is there anything we could do to maybe encourage that fine root hair growth once we've overwatered or underwatered, or is it just really a matter of getting the watering right?
I mean, it's a lot of it's just getting it right, and it's something you'll learn over time. I mean, I've killed a lot of plants over the years, and I think you learn every time you do. But I think so. Starting with a good mix that has good physical properties is going to be really important. To see someone put, drainage and aeration in there. Absolutely, that's a great comment. So starting with a mix that has very good physical properties is very helpful in all of that. And then in terms of getting the watering right, don't be afraid, like you said, to pick up a pot. If you have it in a pot, get used to knowing what that feels like right after you water, what it feels like when it's dry, and when it's properly watered. Your finger is a good tool. It's not overly sensitive. You can feel moisture, so you can reach into a pot with your finger. You can reach in there and take some soil and pull it out and squeeze it. And if you squeeze soil and then open your hand, if it's potting soil, you'll want it should break up into like maybe 2 or 3 chunks. You shouldn't be able to squeeze a drop of water out of it. That's too wet. And if it just crumbles in your hand, that's way too dry. So you can start to get an idea of what optimal watering looks like over time. And then there's tools, you can get a Blue Lab pulse meter. You can get a Blue Mat moisture meter. Those are other things that are helpful for folks that are still learning or really want to, have data for everything.
And that's something that I recommended or still always recommend for people who are getting the hang of it. Because even if you have, 4 or 5 2-gallon pots inside of your tent, you just need 1 meter because you're able to visually see where that is as far as dry or wet, and then feel that. And then you could compare what that feels like to the rest of them. And then pretty soon, if you continue to always use that size of pot, you don't even need the meter anymore. You just kind of lift the edge. You're like, yeah, needs water. So that's excuse me, that's a great tool to use. And again, you don't have to get one for every pot there. Brandon did
Yeah.
have one more add in for the roots, phosphorus for the roots, but he says if you do mycorrhizae, get the infection done before you add NEP, or it might not take. And probably the best way to get the infection done is to probably tilt your pot, take it off if you can, and then sprinkle directly onto the roots. Would that be more effective or more expeditious than just sprinkling it on the top and finger scratching it in?
So between those two methods, absolutely, because it is a root symbiont, it has to come into direct contact with the roots. Uh, that being said, I would look at doing that even earlier. So you can coat the seed, or you can, when you take a rooted clone and you first put it in the soil, you can add the mycorrhiza then. You got to make sure that you're adding the right kind. So the ones that we carry are from Dynomyco and Wallace Wow. I think this last run, I actually added mycorrhizal fungi. That's the only thing I did. So I added, just for the video that I just showed, just to give you guys some context. I didn't test my soil this run. I had tested it the run before, and then this run I wanted to just do the nutrient pack to just see what the results look like. Because a lot of folks, if you're a small home grower, you don't want to spend $100 on a soil test and analysis. That's a lot of money for a small grow. So
Every
it's like,
time,
all right, I just want to show what can happen just using using the nutrient pack. So I amended it the regular rates for the nutrient pack. And then when I turned it into the soil, top 6 inches, dug it in with my hands, and then left it for a week just to like get the right moisture and let the nutrients cycle. And then I brought in those clones, the Rick James cuts, and pretty big. So they were already like this tall when I got them, and I knew they came in with thrips and fungus gnats, which is why the plants ended up finishing so big, because I wanted to get an order of beneficial insects. I had to do a few sprays. I wanted to get them really healthy. But then when I went to put them into the beds, I literally took the plant and I sprinkled think I used the Wallace Wow in this case because that's the one I had on hand. I sprinkled into the hole and then put it in, transplanted like I normally would, and then watered over the top. From that point on, I did not add any nutrients. I just watered. I didn't add, even the potassium silicate. I didn't add any grow or bloom formulation. I just did the water because I'm in a giant bed. And so my theory was, and you can see from the results it worked, is just that there's enough nutrients in the bed that large for 6 plants in a 4x4 that I didn't have to add anything else. So it worked really well. But if you are doing mycorrhizal fungi, what Brandon was alluding to is don't add anything with like phosphoric acid or a formulation that has a lot of phosphorus, because then the plant's not going to be inclined to form the infection with the mycorrhizal fungi. They'll say, I'm getting all the phosphorus I need. And so it doesn't make that association. But you get so much more from a mycorrhizal infection you do just from than just phosphorus. So there are a lot of benefits to doing it if you're not being tested for heavy metals, which most home growers are not. It's probably worth adding.
And the mycorrhizae in itself isn't a heavy metal, but it has the tendency to accumulate faster in the plant when that's used. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's research that shows that in the phosphorus, it will help with the uptake of arsenic and other heavy metals. So if you are in a very tightly regulated state, we typically caution against using mycorrhizal fungi because there's research that supports that. And if we get all of our uptake from the soil of arsenic in that first cycle, there's a chance you fail, and we just don't want to risk that. I did see a question asking about if you have to wait a week after adding the nutrient pack or after amending your soil before planting. And no, you do not. If you're not amending at a super high rate, you can probably re-amend and bring your plants in the next day, realistically. If you amend at a higher rate, then you do have to be careful because the soil will heat up, your plants won't like it. The bacteria and microbes are more efficient at consuming those nutrients. And so you can actually get hot soil from the reproduction of the microbes, the bacteria, which plants absolutely do not like, and they'll start to look unhappy in that soil. Or they'll consume the nitrogen, and you'll actually see a nitrogen deficiency, even though you just added nitrogen in the form of these dry amendments. So provided you follow the rules on the package, you should be just fine.
Okay. And that too, again, is going to be input specific, other things, chicken manure, obviously, you want to let those things cook, but yeah, specifically for the KISS Organics, for the nutrient pack and the bloom boosters. Yeah, good answer. And I know you told me not to direct sow into the Westport blend soil. So of course, what do? I direct sow into the Westport blend.
We have people that do it.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's probably better to, err on the side of caution, use something with less nutrients in it. But, I did it because I was told not to, and it worked out fine. So this is not an endorsement of that practice. But yeah, I did it anyway.
In general, seeds want less fertility, more aeration than full-grown plants. So the soil is not designed for that, but we have people like you that, just will do it anyway. And it'll still work, but if you're paid for expensive seeds, we want to just give you the best practice. But that's awesome. I'm glad it worked out so well for you.
And back to the moisture meters. I know because we've talked about a few different kinds, and the EcoWit was mentioned. But I haven't used it myself. So I don't know if there is a right number. Maybe you have more of like a range, because from what I've learned just from playing with different soils and with the Bluemont tensiometer is it's going to be slightly different. There is no one number for all media. So do you have a range, or have you heard of a range, or maybe anybody in chat for just maybe a KISS blend?
I just looked up EcoWit because I wasn't familiar with that product either. It looks like it does a volumetric watering, similar to like the Blue Lab pulse meter, in which case 30 to 35% is probably, because it's going to read you, give you a percentage number. That would be a good range to start with for folks if you're using something like that. Um, the one that I use is the Blue Lab Pulse meter, and I would give target a similar range. Um, yeah, that's fine. And when you hit 25, you could start rewatering. Some people are going to run things wetter. And that's what we find in with mats. So which I'm more familiar with, like with the Blue Mat moisture meter, we're reading M bars. Most people will aim for 80 to 100, or even 80 is that target number. But now we have some guys that are down at 60 or 50 or 60, with lower numbers being wetter. We tend to see better growth, but you're also kind of opening yourself up more to pathogen risk too, because they like those wetter conditions. So it's a little bit of a off.
Sweet. All right. I think we have gotten through the questions for today. There was one from Double A in here, just kind of regarding what we talked about at the front of the show about the NRCS grant program. I need to get my farmland USDA registered. And he asks if there's any benefits to being on the program, because homesteading community just basically this says it's kind of a data collection thing. Yeah, there's absolutely benefits. If I want to be involved in some of these grants, if I want to be involved in other programs, I will need to be part of that program. So to me, opportunity outweighs the potential negative consequences, of which I'm unaware of at this moment, but I need to do more research. But I don't see a problem with doing that, or even just saying, hey, I have farmland, here's my coordinates. I'm okay with that. So that was kind of the final question I saw in here. Any burning topics remaining, Tad, or do you just want to let people know where to find you?
Yeah, I had a couple just announcements to make.
Please.
The latest podcast is out, Cannabis Cultivation and Science. It's all about entobopathic fungi, which is a mouthful, but you guys have all heard of them. It's things like, it's things like, it's just basically fungus that kill insects. So think of like Bavaria or Ceria. A lot of these things you guys are probably familiar with, but understanding them, I think, is really important because they're very useful in your. Two, the Can of Cribs episode came out at Collective Elevation. If you were wanting to see where we threw the conference last year and where we're throwing it again this year in Bozeman, Montana, tickets are available. You can check out the Can of Cribs episode. It's a very, very cool facility. And I'm so excited because this year we're moving we call it the tasting event. I think we have to change the name of it to sensory experience or something. But basically, the Soil Alliance donated a bunch of weed, and then we went through a little, sommelier experience that was a lot of fun for people on the last day. This time we're moving it to a concert hall, and so we'll have the whole building rent. I just paid for that today, so we're going to have that through for a Saturday evening. And it's going to be just a fun hangout. And I want to set a table so people can bring their own weed and share and sample and share their genetics too. So it's not like you have to just go through this tasting event too. You can just kind of hang out and have fun. So, and then I just confirmed, Dr. Nicole Gauthier is a pathologist. She's going to be coming out to Bozeman for the event to speak. Bryant Mason, Soil Doctor Consulting. Cool, he's out there, and then Suzanne Wainwright Evans. So already have those 3 speakers lined up. It's going to be a really, really fun event. I would love to get more folks to come out and join us. You can go visit Yellowstone. You can bring the family. Just leave them at home when we go to the facility. But it's Bozeman's a cool city to hang out in if you need a good family vacation. All right, that's my pitch. That's all I had.
I'm excited. Last year I was preoccupied with something that was booked months and months ahead of time. But this next year I'll be going. Is it September again?
Last weekend of August.
Last weekend of August. Okay, sorry if I missed that there, but last weekend of August. Awesome,
Yeah.
dude. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out the Kiss Organics website. That's where you can pick up the Westport Blend soil, the nutrient pack, the bloom booster, a whole bunch of things. You can kind of almost create your own little awesome blend by using all of these stuff over there. And don't forget the Kiss Organics YouTube channel every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Tad is live. So a lot of times with Brandon, I've seen you with the soil doctor. Also seen you. Oh shoot, he always wears a blue shirt, and he has a beard. He's a nice gentleman. I'm blanking his
And
name.
Ben
Sure.
doesn't always have a blue. Well,
Okay. Blanking it.
um,
Otherwise, guys, yeah, keep it locked here on the Chad Westport YouTube channel. You can pick up my gear and merch, chadwestport.com. And don't forget, there is a Chad Westport Patreon now, and that's the exclusive spot to get testers and early genetics. So there will be something this week coming up there. So that's all I got, Tad. Anything last
I
minute to add here?
I did. I keep forgetting. I have I'm going to be in Vancouver, Canada
Oh, snap.
next week for the Grow Up conference. Actually missed live, but Brandon and Ben will hold it down for us. But if anyone is going to that conference, hit me up. And then I'm going to be going to the Lucky Leaf conference in Minnesota in end of February, I think it is.
Wow.
And I'll be speaking at that. But that should be fun too. So I see folks there. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, busy guy, man. That'll be awesome. That thing in Vancouver looks cool. If I had the time, I'd definitely be there. So anybody going, hit him up and enjoy yourself, because I know a lot of awesome people that'll be there. So until next time, everybody, have a great day. See you later.